Welcome to Earth. And if you're back again, welcome back. Thank you for the support. And if you are one of those people who left a great comment under one of my other videos, thank you for the remarks. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the encouragement. I'm going to keep doing these as long as you will watch them. So thanks for being here. It's getting hot out there. I don't know about you. If you haven't been paying attention to current events, it's getting really hot. And it shows no signs of stopping or slowing down anytime soon. Some big news on the UFO scene, and we're going to get right into it. We're going to start with some climate stuff because we do all live here on the same planet. And as important as the UFO conversation is and disclosure is, all of it happens in the context of a collapsing biosphere on a burning planet. So we need to keep abreast of what's going on out there in the world. World registers hottest day ever, recorded on July 3rd. This is July 5th from Reuters. Monday, July 3rd was the hottest day ever recorded globally, according to data from the U.S. National Centers for Environmental Prediction. The average global temperature reached 17.01 degrees Celsius, which is 62.62 degrees Fahrenheit, surpassing the August 2016 record of 16.92 degrees C, as heat waves sizzled around the world. The southern U.S. has been suffering under an intense heat dome in recent weeks. In China, an enduring heat wave continued with temperatures above 35 degrees C. North Africa has seen temperatures near 50 degrees C, 122 degrees Fahrenheit. And parts of the American Southwest are getting close to that as well. Past that point, you get to a certain wet bulb temperature, the human body can't even survive outdoors. The heat will literally cook your organs inside your body and kill you. And that's kind of where we're moving. Many places in the world are going to experience heat of this magnitude for longer and longer periods as we continue on. This is from Inside Climate News. June extremes suggest parts of the climate system are reaching tipping points. All right. Congratulations, everybody. Go team. We did it, finally. Research shows heat domes, wildfires, and vanishing polar ice are the symptoms. Unabated greenhouse gas emissions are the cause. And here's some wildfire photography to raise your blood pressure. In June 2023 may be remembered as the start of a big change in the climate system, with many key global indicators flashing red warning lights amid signs that some systems are tipping toward a new state from which they may not recover. Earth's critical reflective polar ice caps are at their lowest extent on record in the satellite era, with the sea ice around Antarctica at a record low extent by far, spurring worried scientists to share dramatic charts of the missing ice repeatedly. In the Arctic, the month ended with the Greenland ice sheet experiencing one of the largest June melt events ever recorded, and with scientists reporting that June 2023 was the hottest June ever measured, breaking the 2019 record by a staggering 0.16 degrees Celsius. Ocean heat around Florida is unprecedented, and scientists are warning of major impacts. This is from CNN. A sudden marine heat wave off the sudden heat waves. They get you every time. A sudden marine heat wave off the coast of Florida has surprised scientists and sent water temperatures soaring to unprecedented highs, threatening one of the most severe coral bleaching events the state has ever seen. Sea surface temperatures around Florida have reached the highest levels on record since satellites began collecting ocean data, and the warming is happening much earlier than normal. Yet another example of ocean heat being amplified by the human-caused climate crisis and the extreme weather it brings. And what's interesting about that is how rarely you'll hear your local meteorologist talk about this. Maybe you're lucky and you have a meteorologist in your local area that actually covers climate correctly. But for the most part, most meteorologists, it seems to me anyway, are very hesitant to get into the whole issue of climate change and climate collapse, ecosystem collapse, biosphere collapse, the sixth great mass extinction. It's just, you know what? It's a bummer. And it doesn't make people want to go out and go shopping and spend money. So they don't really cover it on the local news. And that's unfortunate. So if you are lucky and you have a meteorologist who does talk about this stuff, that's great. But for the most part, yeah, it seems like local weather people are all kind of clueless. They have this whole like shtick that they do where they're like, well, it's just another crazy heat wave. And man, yeah, put on your sandals, get your shorts, and head to the beach to cool off. But we're actually in the part of the movie now where scientists are freaking out. We were in the part of the movie where the scientists were coming into like the office at the government office where all the important decision makers are, and they're coming up to the podium and they're like, yeah, if we don't do something soon, it's going to be really, really bad. And then we didn't do anything. And now we're in the other part of the movie now where the scientists are like, everything's on fire and we're almost out of time. And they always sort of cash it with this like, but there's still time if we act now. The time to act was 40 years ago. The time to act was 60 years ago. The time to act has already come and gone. The time now is the time of crisis. And that's where we're going to live for the rest of your life and the rest of my life. And the question is, how bad do we want this crisis to get before we get serious and get real about doing something? And then what would doing something even look like? What is something? Well, I'm glad you asked. White House cautiously opens the door to study blocking sun's rays to slow global warming. It's okay that we've lost so much of our polar ice caps, our reflective polar ice caps that bounce this sun's energy back into space, because we have a plan to geoengineer the planet. A Biden administration report required by Congress. Interesting. It was required by Congress. I don't think they would have done it if it wasn't required by Congress. Outlines research options for a last-ditch effort to slow the heating of the planet. But the White House says it's not changing its climate policy or its climate strategy. Let's read further. The White House offered measured support for the idea of studying how to block sunlight from hitting Earth's surface as a way to limit global warming in a congressionally mandated report that could help bring efforts once confined to science fiction into the realm of legitimate debate. The controversial concept, known as solar radiation modification, that's a really boring way to put it, is a potentially effective response to fighting climate change, but one that could have unknown side effects stemming from altering the chemical makeup of the atmosphere, some scientists say. Well, I mean, we've done gone and altered the chemical makeup of the atmosphere. I mean, you can just put that to bed because that's done. We've dumped this, our atmosphere on this planet has been an open sewer for a century and a half. I mean, we have poured every chemical there is. We've blown up atomic bombs. We've poisoned the air with all kinds of chemicals and industrial waste. And Lord only knows, every breath you take, how much poison is in it. It's pretty bad. And at this point, I think adding more to the atmosphere in some crazy, desperate attempt to stave off the worst effects of climate change is at best a way of extending the set of living arrangements that has put us in this predicament in the first place. The truth is that we would have to completely change our civilization in a way that would make life today would be completely, you wouldn't recognize it. I mean, imagine a civilization where almost no one drives, almost no one really flies. And we would have to basically bring our carbon burning of carbon down to zero and then reverse it. We have to actually throw this into reverse. Don't forget, in order for us to stop and arrest the situation that we're in, we have to pull the carbon now out of the atmosphere and bring us below the threshold that we're at now. And so we don't have the technology to do this, of course, at least not at scale. I mean, you'll hear there's always some pilot program somewhere where they're doing this. But generally, pulling carbon out of the atmosphere is not a very effective way to fix the situation we're in. Solar geoengineering, which has been around forever, this has been studied for 50, 60 years. I believe it was the Rand Corporation actually did one of the earliest studies on this. But basically it involves putting particulate matter up in the atmosphere, something like sulfur, simulating what happens during a volcanic eruption to mask the Earth, in a sense, almost blocking the sun from getting to the surface in the first place so that we don't have the heat build up. But of course, there are unintended consequences to everything that you do. As soon as you start reducing the amount of sunlight coming down, you're affecting crop yields in a negative way. You're affecting weather patterns. You're affecting all kinds of things. So the idea is to use short-acting atmospheric aerosol materials that would last for either a few days or a few weeks, but eventually would come out of the atmosphere so that they could do this in sort of a test over a particular area, see if it works, and then scale it back. But the idea that we're even having this conversation should be an indicator to you of how bad the situation is. We're in a burning house, and these folks are talking about, well, maybe there's a way that we can keep the fire from burning us. It just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. My guess is that the more things get out of control and people see the destruction and the crazy weather with their own eyes, the more difficult it's going to be for corporate propaganda to convince you that everything's okay. So we're going to roll out some method for cooling the planet a little bit so that we can just keep on buying time. But buying time for what? Buying time for going to the mall and spending money on junk that's going to wind up in the ocean, or going to a big box store. Next time you go into a big box store, look around. Look at everything in that store. All of it is going to be in a landfill or in the ocean within 36 to 72 months. Anything in that store. And then think of how many big box stores there are in every town, all over the world, filled with junk. We're manufacturing junk to ship around the world to sell to people who don't need it so that we can hire other people to process the junk and throw it in a landfill or ship it someplace else where they can bury it for 1,000 years. It makes no sense. Our entire civilization is completely ham-handed and backwards. And it's going to take some new thinking to get us out of this. So now that you're all thoroughly freaked out and completely discombobulated, let's get into some UFO news, because there actually has been some movement in that area, and there's some really amazing things going on. According to News Nation poll, many believe government is hiding what it knows about UFOs. Did you know this? Oh, man. New polling shows a majority of voters believe the U.S. government knows more about UFOs than it says it does. In a poll of 1,500 eligible U.S. voters carried out by Redfield and Wilton Strategies exclusively for Newsweek, 57% of respondents believe the government has more information about UFOs and alien life than it has publicly revealed. Another 21% said they did not think this was the case, and 22% said they did not know. Members of Congress have recently said they want to investigate UFOs after claims made by David Grush, a former member of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Grush spoke in June to investigative journalist Ross Coulthart on News Nation about his time in Congress's Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, which is now called the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. Grush said that the UAP task force was refused access to a crash retrieval program. He alleges the U.S. government has recovered non-human origin technical vehicles, or, quote, spacecraft, for decades, and even said the U.S. has retrieved bodies from other species. Quote, I have plenty of senior former intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me that they were part of a program. Florida Senator Marco Rubio, a Republican, says he's heard from officials with, quote, high clearances who make similar claims. Quote, what I think we owe is just a mature understanding, listening and trying to put all these pieces together, and just intake the information without any prejudgment or jumping to any conclusions, Rubio said. Asked about Grush's specific allegations of the government possessing non-human origin technical vehicles, 34% of those asked in the Newsweek poll said they believed them, 30% did not, and 36% said they did not know. Interesting. The Pentagon responded to UFO claims in a statement saying that AARO has not discovered any verifiable information to substantiate claims that any programs regarding the possession or reverse engineering of extraterrestrial materials have existed in the past or exist currently. And it's really interesting the way that's worded. Listen to this again. Quote, this is the Pentagon statement regarding this. Quote, AARO has not discovered any verifiable information to substantiate claims that any programs regarding the possession or reverse engineering of extraterrestrial materials have existed in the past or exist currently. So their original statement, if you can find it, it's out there. Their original statement says there's no credible information. But the Inspector General said it actually was, the claims were credible. So they came back and put out another statement. And in the second statement, they said, AARO has not discovered any verifiable information to substantiate claims that any programs regarding the possession or reverse engineering of extraterrestrial materials have existed in the past or exist currently. Well, that's a very specific statement. And I think that the claims are going to get verified very, very soon because Senate Intelligence Bill gives holders of non-Earth origin or exotic UAP material 6 months to make it available to AARO. This is from Douglas Johnson. I'll put this link in the show notes. It's a long read. It's about a 20-minute read, but I'm just going to get into the beginning part of it. The U.S. Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, SSCI, has unanimously approved legislation containing language that appears intended to dig out any UAP-associated technology that is or ever was controlled by the federal government. The new UAP-UFO provisions are being publicly reported in detail in this article for the first time anywhere. So if you want to get the real detailed breakdown, this is a great place to start. And actually, he links to the original wording in the actual bill, so you can click that and get the PDF of the bill and read through that if you like. The new UAP provisions are part of the fiscal year 2024 Intelligence Authorization Act, which was approved unanimously by the Senate Intelligence Committee in a closed-door session on June 14th. On June 21, I reported on the committee's action, but the text of the UAP amendment was not yet publicly available at that time. It is now. The committee formally filed the bill, and it was assigned its number on June 22. It was posted on the internet early on June 24. The new UAP language, found in Section 1104 of the bill, would require, quote, any person currently or formerly under contract with the federal government that has in their possession material or information provided by or derived from the federal government relating to unidentified anomalous phenomena that formerly or currently is protected by any form of special access or restricted access, end quote, to notify the director of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office within 60 days of enactment and to provide within 180 days a comprehensive list of all non-Earth origin or exotic unidentified anomalous phenomena material possessed and to make it available to the AARO director for assessment, analysis, and inspection. So that's pretty specific wording too, and it looks like that's a pretty bulletproof statement. There have been rumors that, well, not rumors, but some people have said that it just gives these companies 6 months to move all their stuff and to hide it again and to continue this game of cat and mouse. But Ross Coulthart recently on the Project Unity podcast made an interesting statement where he said at least one of these craft that he's aware of is so big they couldn't move it. and they actually had to build or construct the building around the craft because it's that big. It's not in the country. It's not in the United States. It's outside of the country. But Ross Coulthart is aware of at least one craft that is so big they had to build a building around it. They couldn't move it. Now think about how big it would have to be for us not to be able to move it. I mean, we can move some pretty big stuff. So, entire buildings have been moved. Just military hardware. The things that we can move are pretty astounding. So for a ship to be that size, it's pretty hard to hide. It looks to me like the time of the big reveal is coming soon, and we can expect to see some pretty interesting things. And here from Politico, House GOP plans to hold long-teased UFO hearing. Quote, "That's what it is about. Aliens. I think people deserve to know," end quote. Representative Tim Burchett, who is leading the effort, told Politico. The House Oversight Committee is finally planning to hold a long-teased hearing on UFOs. A small but vocal contingent of the Republican conference has been pushing for a hearing after the Pentagon and other national security agencies have said in recent months that they are investigating unidentified aircraft and hundreds of new reports of UFOs. Senior Republicans have now tentatively slated such a hearing for the last week of July, according to two Republicans familiar with the hearing. That's what it is about. Aliens. I think people deserve to know. Representative Tim Burchett, one of the two Republicans, told Politico. Both Oversight Chair James Comer and Speaker Kevin McCarthy have signed off on holding a hearing with Burchett and Rep. Anna Paulina Luna. Republican Florida asked to take the lead. A spokesperson for Comer noted that the hearing is still in its planning stages, but it is, quote, looking like it will happen towards the end of the month, end quote. The Kentucky Republican said it will be a subcommittee hearing. Despite the early stages, the hearing has already sparked pushback not only within the committee, but from the Defense Department, according to Burchett. Another GOP member of the Oversight Committee, granted anonymity to speak candidly, said they plan to attend, but, quote, there are some people who want to stop it. There are some people who want to do it. That lawmaker also said that they had been told the hearing will take place during the final week of July. Quote, there's just internal machinations between staff and members. Some don't want to do it at this time right now, think it is a bad idea, the member said, adding that there was a concern that, quote, people will run wild with it, end quote. Run wild. That's interesting. An Oversight Committee staffer denied that there was pushback on the hearing, but indicated that staff is trying to work out witnesses. The Defense Department didn't immediately respond to a request for comment about the hearing. Spokespeople for Luna didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. The hearing would be this year's latest example of Congress digging into the UFO space after alien fever briefly gripped Washington as the United States shot down a series of balloons, or so they would have us believe, at least some of which turned out to be Chinese spy aircraft. Sean Kirkpatrick, director of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, testified before the Senate Armed Services Committee earlier this year, telling senators that the Pentagon at the time was tracking roughly 650 incidents involving unidentified aircraft. An unclassified annual report released by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence in January said they had found 510 cases through August 30th of 2022. Kirkpatrick told senators at the time that he had found no evidence of alien activity. But he also raised eyebrows when he co-wrote a draft academic paper with Harvard professor Avi Loeb, in which they floated that unexampled aerial incursions could be, quote, probes from an extraterrestrial parent craft, while acknowledging that they don't know for sure if there are any functioning extraterrestrial crafts near Earth. So, yeah, big moves. The Senate is moving forward with legislation that gets voted on later this year, but the wording to the legislation, or at least the addition to the bill for the Intelligence Authorization Act, has been finalized, at least to my understanding, and there's going to be a vote later in the year on that. And then the House of Representatives is going to be holding a subcommittee hearing coming up at the end of this month to talk to some of these whistleblowers. And from what we're hearing, of course, there's going to be pushback, or there is pushback from the DoD, Pentagon, on this issue, because they know that once the witnesses come forward and start talking, it will be impossible to withhold this information. It's going to come flooding out. And I feel like we're at this moment where the dam is about to burst. And we are just now seeing the little tiny holes in the dam, and there's water shooting out. And most people, about 2/3 of people, are just kind of like meandering through their lives trying to get by. And then there's like 36% of people who are like really eagerly interested in this topic. And then probably 1% of people who are as obsessed with it as you or I am. So I think that's all going to flip. I think we're coming up to a very interesting moment where once the dam breaks, there's no putting it back. Once this is out in the open, there's no covering it back up. You see, this is about paper trailing it. That's what this is all about. People complain that this process takes so long, and they're saying, where's the proof? Where's the proof? Show me something. But the government isn't one group. It's many groups, and they're all working towards their own different varied agendas, doing different things, right? Congress is just another part of this gigantic machine of other moving parts. That's all kind of, it's like this big cluster of different organisms all kind of doing their own thing. And so when we say we want the government to provide us proof, well, that's the process that we're in right now, right? The legislative branch has to put the legal framework in place so that the whistleblowers can come forward without fear of prosecution or persecution or being murdered or just falling off a building or getting some crazy, poison in their coffee, or who knows. But the protections have to be put in place first. That's what these bills are about. That's what Congress is doing now. As the whistleblowers come forward and they put their statements on record, those statements become part of the actual record, and we can refer back to them. And as that continues to grow, there's a foundation that's firm enough to stand on for our elected officials to actually feel comfortable going out and doing these investigations. And I think that's what you're seeing. I think that's what you're seeing with somebody like Marco Rubio, who's clearly neck deep in this process. When you listen to him speak, he's saying things that are very guarded, and he seems to be concerned about appearing concerned, but he definitely looks concerned. And you can almost get the sense, listening to Rubio talk, that he's almost saying it out loud, that there's a part of the military-industrial complex that's gone rogue, and they've got this technology, and they're developing it off the books, away from the prying eyes of Congress. And, in our country, we have civilian control of the military, but we don't have civilian control of corporations. Corporations do whatever they want. They run this country for the most part. And these defense contractors are big donors. They donate to a lot of campaigns. So the fact that we're even in this moment and this is happening is astonishing. And I think it shows that we've made amazing progress. It's a shame that we couldn't get the same kind of progress on climate change legislation. And it's a shame that we couldn't have worked better together in a nonpartisan way for the last 40 years to address the other issues that are so critical. But my hope is that as we start to peel the layers off this onion and dig down into what technology we've actually recovered and what we can actually do with it, that we're going to start to find some solutions for these issues. It's going to take everybody. It's going to take civilian academics. It's going to take different disciplines. I don't think Lockheed Martin is employing any anthropologists or philosophers or psychologists to study this issue. And, it's going to take more than just engineers and material scientists to have this conversation. So we need to bring this out into the open now, and we need to expand this discussion, and we need to involve other disciplines and other types of people who have different points of view. If you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And to the military industrial complex, that's the biggest hammer in the world. They're always looking for nails. So it's just too important of an issue, and it's too critical to leave it to them. And I think it's time that we reestablish control over who actually makes decisions around here. And going forward, we're going to have to really rethink the set of living arrangements that we have on this planet. And it's going to take new technology, and it's going to take a new way of thinking. It's going to take a new vision for what kind of society and civilization we want. So it remains to be seen if humanity will rise to the occasion. I certainly hope we will. What do you think? If you've stuck with me this long, thank you for sticking around. I appreciate you being here. I know that this is not everybody's cup of tea, but I started this podcast because it's kind of amazing. I can't really find a ton of people to talk to about this. I think this is the most interesting thing in the world ever. And most people are just too busy to be bothered. So hopefully you are like me and you find this just as fascinating, and you'll stick with me for the next one. Please like this video. Please consider subscribing. If I can support myself doing these videos, I'll do more of them, and I'll change up the format a little bit. But that's going to take all the support I can get from you guys. So please like, please subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you think, what questions you have, and is there something that you want me to look into and maybe do another video on? Let me know. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.